Hello, there we are. That sound is back. Apologize for that. Hey Chandler, thanks for checking out with me there. How's the sound working for us now? Is it good? I hope so. Video has no sound. Yeah, I see that. We back on with sound now. Can you hear me? I show that it's coming through the board. So again, so sorry for that little hiccup there. Um, so today is going to be a fun day. We are going to be having a special guest here on the podcast. Look at that, big pretensions I have on our demo today. So we're going to be introducing something that we do throughout the year, which is called cupping. Now you've probably watched Brendan do some. I've done some as well. And we've been cupping coffees that we already have, just so we can explain them and share them with you. But what we're going to do with Bob today is we're actually going to be doing a cupping of prospective coffees. So I just want to bring Bob online here. Check over here. We have a feed right into his house here. Oh, and there he is. Hi, Bob. How you doing?
Great, Josh. Morning.
Good. And can
How are
everybody hear
you?
Bob okay? Just want to check in with the feed here and make sure people can get good audio
Okay.
for you.
Yeah, I heard Chandler's name. Hello, Chandler. Um, Hello, Brendan, if you're tuning in as well. Other video cupper. We doing pretty good?
Yeah, Tom says
You get-
Bob. And we had Bob going on all over the place on the social media feed
All
right now. Hello,
all
Bob.
right.
Yo, Bob.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, I hope everybody's hanging in there, fellow coworkers, customers, and friends of Batdorf. Glad to be joining you guys this morning.
So I
Um,
was just explaining that we've done some cuppings here on these demos, but we're doing something a little different today. Do you want to kind of describe the difference between what we do when we're cupping something that we're just kind of enjoying that's in
yeah,
our current lineup and what you're doing today?
sure. Um, Yeah, as you said, a lot of the tastings we've been doing have focused on coffees that are currently in the inventory. Today's actually no exception. It is coffee that's in our inventory. However, these are coffees that are currently at origin, pre-shipment samples, or recently arrived samples of coffees that we buy on a regular basis. Um, it's the shipping time of year. It's a busy time of year in terms of coffee movement, especially or specifically from Central America. So the coffees we're going to focus on today are Central American coffees. It's always an interesting time of year in the roastery because we're making that transition from coffees that were from, in this case, the 2019 crop cycle into coffees that are from the 2020 crop cycle. You may or may not know the harvest occurs in Central America between the months of November and end of February into March in some places. So these are coffees that were harvested this year, are either at origin or currently on a ship and steaming their way towards us.
Got it.
All
So
right.
um, so right now, can you kind of tell us what the process is going to be like? Some folks have watched these cuppings. Maybe you can
Yeah,
describe a
yeah,
little bit
yeah.
what we're going to do.
Okay, so basically, most of my work when I'm at work is spent in the lab doing a lot of this tasting and sample roasting the coffees and making sure that things are up to spec for us. So I was able to move a lot of the stuff that I had down at work here into my quarantine cupping lab, also known as my kitchen. Um, but yeah, so the coffees we have right now are specifically three Nicaraguan coffees, one of which is a certified coffee, and one coffee from Costa Rica, a Tarrazu as well. So we have four coffees that we're going to taste today. And I thought it would be good to actually piggyback a little bit on what Ben was talking about yesterday with blends versus origin. Primary purpose for these coffees is to be used in some of our workhorse blends. We also sell the coffees as single origin coffees, though. We've always said that any coffee we buy can stand alone, and these are no exception. So, tag on with what Ben was talking about yesterday, but then also, correct all the things that he misspoke about yesterday, because I know Ben actually mentioned something about me maybe starting up today with, just tell them that that's a joke, Ben. I hope you're out there listening. I'm actually not going to be correcting you.
Even if you did
But
correct
anyway,
him, you would correct him in the kindest way possible. Right?
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'll call him with my own personal touch. No. I'm basically going to be doing things the same way I do them in the lab. I'll explain a little bit about cupping protocol. I'm only doing 2 glasses of each coffee today. I've already cupped these coffees a couple times. Pretty sure they're going to suit our needs. But I just thought I'd explain a little bit about each coffee, why we buy it, where it comes from, what we use it for, and talk a little bit just about the protocol of coffee movement from origin to our roastery.
Awesome. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and open the screen up and just let you kind of go through the process here.
All right, sounds good.
You might hear my voice from time to time.
Yeah, just shout out whenever you see fit. I'm probably going to just start by getting up, doing what I'll call the dry aromatic impression. You can tell a lot about a coffee before you ever even taste the coffee. So I'm going to get started. And obviously, as far as how this works, Josh, I don't know if people have questions real time or if I just kind of keep rolling. So
yeah, what I'll do is I'll actually, if when questions come rolling through the feed here, I can read them, and I'll kind of verbally raise my hand so you can hear me over there at the counter, and I'll ask questions, and I'll make sure people know that I'm asking their question.
Okay, sounds good. So I'm just going to kind of walk over there and get started. If for some reason my audio gets a little low, I'm going to obviously try and project well at the device here. But yeah, so specifically the coffees we have on the table are certified organic and fair trade coffee from a co-op in northern Nicaragua in the San Juan del Rio Coco area. It's called Santo Domingo, which you guys may be familiar with. It's been in our lineup before. I have both a pre-shipment sample and an arrival samples, but 2 different lots. One coffee that's still at origin, coffee that has arrived here stateside from Finca Los Placeres, which is our conventional Nicaraguan coffee. We use it for our French and Italian roasts, and we also use it in some blends as well. So those are 2 of the coffees that are there. And then, like I said, a Costa Rican coffee from the Tarrazú area. It's a regional blend. It comes through a mill called Beneficio Rio Tarrazú, or the BRT mill, purchased through our friends at La Manita Coffee. And when I say regional blends, what I mean is they go and they buy cherry from up and down the Tarrazú Valley, and then they use all that cherry to create this blend, even though it's a single origin coffee that we then purchase and use in our coffees. And that's one of our, you probably know that's one of our workhorse coffees in our Dancing Goats blend. So I'm going to stand up, walk over there, do my dry aromatic impression. Basically, cupping protocol here. So I got a 5-ounce glass. I use 7 grams of coffee in there. Ground to about French press, a little bit more of a coarse grind. You can change how you do this. This is up really to the cover and what suits their needs. But the important thing is you do it the same way every time. So I'm going to start. Just going to give the glass a little shake. Do an aromatic impression. Move on to the next one. So that was the Santo Domingo Co-op. And here I have the pre-shipment sample of Los Placeres. And this is the arrival sample of Placeres. So one of the things that I'm looking for here is I want to see consistency from delivery to delivery. And I'm also looking at, I can make an assumption that this coffee came from earlier in the harvest than this coffee, and I want to see consistency through the harvest. Obviously, there's going to be some differences. just in age and amount of rest that this coffee's had at origin. So in a perfect world, they taste exactly the same. And then this Tarrazú, Costa Rica, is an arrival sample as well. So this coffee has landed and cleared in country, and we're just making sure nothing happens. I've already tasted it as a pre-shipment sample, that nothing went awry in shipping. You know, strange things happen on the deck of the boat. So things smell good, look pretty good. You know, I'd normally be taking some notes, maybe marking some things off, getting some aromatic descriptors out there. You know, this is the process that we use to come up with all of our flavor descriptions and stuff that we're putting on our labels and on the coffee reports as well. I'm going to get ahead and I'm going to put water on them. We're going to steep these coffees for 4 minutes, and then I'm going to go back and break that crust. And in the meantime, as we're waiting for that, I'll talk a little bit more about each of the coffees and specifically where they come from and variety, process, that sort of thing. So I might disappear for a sec. I'm going to grab the water.
So I'm just gonna jump in there really quick while Bob is doing that, and let you know that we do have some videos we've done, some demos we've done where we've done coffee cupping. You can dive into the details of those by looking back at the past ones that both Brendan and I have done, and I know that Brendan will be doing some more. We're working on a thing that's called cupping the catalog, kind of. So we'll be working through these coffees, and we also have some coffees coming up that we'll do some very specific cuppings with, probably bringing in Bob as well. It's something that we love doing. That we do obviously as part of our business, as Bob's talking about. It has different stages where we do that quality check on coffees, but we also love doing them in our roastery. We do them on every other Wednesday, and so the hope here was that we will try and recreate that experience. Again, we're trying to replicate for our coffee family, the folks we work with, as well as our fans out there, some of the things that we do as a regular part of our way of doing business, that we don't want to lose hold of.
All right, so water's on. I got my timer running. I'm now going to go back and I'm going to do a wet aromatic impression as well. Oftentimes coffees change from that dry sniff to the wet aromatics. So real quick, like just kind of run over them. And once again, you know, just making mental notes and kind of seeing how things change. So kind of a good opportunity to talk, you know, like I said, a little bit more about the coffees. I'll start with the Central Domingo. I mentioned where Nicaragua it's at, up, you know, northern part of the country, very close actually to the Honduran border. The primary variety that they're growing there is what's called Paraínema, and it's a nematode resistant, somewhat rust resistant variety that's been developed actually in Honduras. And in fact, I believe it won the top place in the Honduran Cup of Excellence probably 4 years ago. So cup quality, you know, can be really good. And the interesting thing about this particular coffee, when I say coffee, I mean Santo Domingo, or this co-op in this case. We didn't have the coffee last year. You guys probably noticed we had the FPO Nicaragua for. Are we all right?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. So we kind of we sort of lost the coffee for the year. They had some issues with their fair trade certification actually, but they're back online for this year. We're hoping to bring the coffee in. Like I said, this is the pre-shipment sample. So right now I'm really looking to make sure that, you know, the quality is there. So so hopefully, you'll be seeing that coffee come through again this year. We talk a lot about the relationships we build. This was one that kind of went off the rails for a year, but hopefully we can get back on track here and bring the coffee back in. So I'm quickly approaching my 4-minute mark here. So I'm going to stand back up and break these coffees. I'll keep talking about the coffees as I'm doing that. So just make some noise if something, isn't working. Once again, just make sure you rinse your spoon in between samples.
Yeah, and I'll jump in while Bob is doing that. That's really important, is that rinsing between the samples, as he mentioned. One of the goals here is that we want to isolate any issues if we're experiencing them in the coffees. And so if we were not to rinse between cups, of course you would transfer possibly from cup to cup whatever you're experiencing.
All right.
Yeah.
So
with hot water, says Chandler. Very true.
So that's kind of the quick story of the Santo Domingo. The Los Placeres coffee. It's an estate coffee from the Matagalpa area, a little bit further south in Nicaragua, but still up in the northern part of the country. It's from a family called the Fincas Mirsch, or the Mirsch family. This is a coffee, believe it or not, that we've been buying for over 20 years. I first met Mirsch family in 1998, so 22 years at this point. It's one of the things that as a company we pride ourselves in the relationships we build. This is a great example of that. We have come to expect a certain quality. We're able to talk a lot about the coffees, what works, what doesn't work, and it's consistency for us, right? We know this coffee is going to be good year in, year out. It's a red Catuai variety, and it's also a fully washed coffee. So no frills, just really great tasting, just solid, lots of caramel, cherry, cocoa, looking for that type of quality when I'm cupping this coffee. In this case, having both, one lot or container. When I say a lot in this case, I'm talking about a container load. So we're looking, each one of these samples that are on the table right now represents 250 bags, or roughly 38,000 pounds of coffee. So these are decisions that really aren't to be taken lightly when you approve or disapprove of them. And it's really important that you're able to provide feedback, both positive and negative, to the producer when you're doing this. It's something that they really want to hear in order to help make improvements for the future. So,
hey Bob, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So, have you ever had an experience with someone maybe that you're working with new, where you try the coffee and you just said you're giving feedback, both positive or negative, where you've been able to work with someone across time and seen a change based off of feedback?
Yeah, absolutely. I know, I think process is probably can have the biggest impact on cup quality. And when I say process, in this case, I'm referring to, fully washed or pulp natural, or, natural processed coffee. I know a lot of producers have done lot separation and done experimenting with different coffees. And, so often we'll see stuff that comes in, same coffee processed 3 different ways, and they want feedback on how those coffees perform. you know, a lot's changed in coffee over the past, 5 years, let alone 20 years, and varieties become a huge choice that producers have to make, especially when you start getting impacted by leaf rust and other diseases that come through. So really kind of giving people feedback on what our impressions of the different varieties they're growing become very important when they're making decisions as to what to plant on their farm. As you know, these are, long-term decisions. You don't just plant a coffee seed and have coffee 6 months later. It's 3 years down the road that most producers are really kind of looking at this sort of thing. Um, so yeah, it's important to just kind of maintain those communication channels with your producing partners. And technology, case in point, here we are being what it is. Even if you're not on the farm, I mean, or if you just go to the farm once a year, we stay in contact with these producers, and we're constantly talking about different arrivals or what's going on the farm or what their expectations of the upcoming harvest are. Is it going to be big? Is it going to be small? What do they think quality is going to be? This year there was some concern about some late rains that could have an impact on quality, but the volumes were looking pretty good. People were recovering pretty well from leaf rust. So all those items are up for discussion when we're communicating with our producer partners. All right, so we're gonna let these coffees cool off a little bit. Just a little something to talk about. I ran the timer. We broke those coffees at 4 minutes. I'm at about 10 minutes right now. Whenever I'm doing these cuppings down in the lab or doing a training with new employees or customers, I'm always talking about what it is we're doing and how we're doing it and why we're doing it. And time on this, my timer's running up. I know temperature for me, I don't like really hot coffee, and 14 minutes is like my time to start tasting these coffees. So some people that might be 12 minutes. It depends on the type of glasses you're using, how well they hold heat. But the analogy I like to talk about when it comes to coffee and temperature is, beers. If there's anyone out there, if anybody out there listening has ever had an experience drinking beer, raise your hand. Okay. Bad beer tastes okay when it's really, really cold. Good beers can kind of last through the temperature range. Bad coffee can, I guess, taste okay when it's super, super hot and you can't really taste anything. But the moment that coffee cools off, you get a much greater impression of its flavor attributes and quality. And so this is why we like to look at these coffee both, hot and cold. If it's coffee I'm really interested in purchasing, I'll let it go stone cold. And to me, a great indication of a solid cup of coffee is if it tastes really good, even when it's, not hot or when it's been sitting out for a while. Negative things tend to shine when the temperature cools off. So that's an interesting, just little thing to consider. And it's something really, I mean, that I would apply to all foods and drinks. There's a reason why if you're in a diner drinking crappy coffee, they want to keep topping it off with, some like nuclear
coffee.
Nuclear hot, just so you're not going to taste just how bad that coffee is. So I mentioned the Placeres Red Catoyer fully washed coffee. That's our conventional French and Italian roast. It does, it performs well through some of the darker roast ranges. I'm going to be actually releasing an article or something, or blog, I don't know, talking a little bit about degree of roast with some of our coffees. And we're kind of doing it in conjunction with, in addition to the coffee reports, that's going to have like a little roast meter on there. Something really simple. It's something that's been asked. Customers are always, so what's the roast like on this one? And, beyond just degree of roast, beyond just how light or dark something is, every coffee that we roast in house, we roast in the lab multiple times. We put it through the production machine multiple times, and we always have an idea of what we're going to use this coffee for. Is it going to be in a blend? Is it going to be espresso? Is it going to be drip coffee? All these things are kind of going through our heads, but more often than not, our goal is, how do we highlight some of the best attributes of these coffees? So most of our coffees kind of fall into that, medium light range, medium range. And this is one of those things where, depending on who you ask, how do you define light versus dark? I mean, are we talking, right at first crack? Are we talking 3 minutes past first crack? People have different opinions about that. I understand that. So find what you like, and but hopefully, as a result of doing this and kind of putting a little bit of an indication on there where we feel like this coffee's fallen, it'll give people a little more educated direction in terms of coffees that they might find appealing in our lineup. So that's just a long-winded way of describing this Placeres coffee as being one that performs really well, a little bit more developed, and also using purposefully in some of our blends is that dark roast component. So that being said, it tastes great on its own. I find myself drinking this coffee, at home on weekends all the time as an origin coffee. So, and then the last one, the Costa Rica, once again, it's, from the Tarrazú Valley, a regional blend. I would say the variety is primarily Caturra in it. There's also some Catuai for sure. And there's also a little bit of what we call a Higuerotico, or Costa Rican hybrid that was introduced to the area, quite some time ago. That's actually taken, the cup quality is quite nice. I believe if you remember our Lilo, the Lilo coffee that we've had, that's the Higuerotico as well. So you've been able to taste that as its own specific variety.
Is that Miner's coffee?
No, that was Los Bobos, from the Cerro del Fuego co-op, which we can talk. We should obviously, when we do have these conversations, one thing leads to the next, and we can do either a certified focused cupping, or we can do a long-term relationship cupping. So
we could even bring somebody on board, right, from one of our farmer partners, and have a conversation with you and us for them.
Yeah, no, I think that'd be fun. So, all right, at this point, I'm close to tasting these coffees, so I'm gonna wander over there and start moving down the line, and then we'll take it from there. Sound good?
Sounds great.
Cool.
And I want to remind folks, we can see the feed here. If you have any questions you want to ask Bob while he's going through this, just put them into the comment bar there, and I'll make sure to get those questions asked of him in real time here.
That's if you're still awake, although let's see, noon. So good afternoon to many people, I'm assuming at this point. All right, so I need. Sorry. Good.
It's okay. We'll shoot to me. Hey, everybody.
Sorry.
No worries.
Find a spit cup. You like
so,
that?
I'll talk about the spit cup a little bit. So often when the team is doing this, you'll hear Bob slurping. I'm gonna blow it up so you can see it. That slurp he's doing is spreading the coffee across his palate. It's also cooling it down a little bit more. He talked quite a bit about cooling and how important that is, so we can taste the range of the coffee. And often they'll be doing dozens of these cups. On a trip that I went with Bob down to Costa Rica, they were doing cupping at a point in their processing to check for quality of every single coffee that came through the processing mill. I think they had some ridiculous number of coffees that they cupped every day. What was that number, Bob?
Oh, I don't know.
114. I mean, just like
Yeah,
so.
something.
That's
Something
why we have a spit
ridiculous.
cup.
Yeah. So obviously, when you do it all day long, you need to limit. So yeah. So the coffees taste as I expect them to taste. One thing that I will bring up with one of the suppliers here, and it's not a bad thing. In fact, it's a good thing. The Costa Rican coffee landed tasted a lot fruitier than it did when I tasted the pre-shipment of that coffee. Similar profile, but definitely the amount of time rest has given it a little bit of more of a chance to kind of solidify and for some of that fruity sweetness to develop. And I would say the same thing, just comparing the pre-ship versus arrival of Luceris as well. The Luceris arrival definitely a little more full-bodied and sweet, and has a little bit more of that dark cherry quality to it versus the pre-ship which has a little bit of a dry edge to it. Some people might call it a little green tasting still. Over time these things change. But nothing out of the realm of my expectations right now.
So Brendan asks a question here. He asks if you could tell us a little bit about the next couple of coffees that are coming on board here in the next month or two.
Yeah. So the next coffee that we're going to release is we're going to have our Bolivia Buena Vista come back.
Oh, yeah.
This is another one of our relationship coffees that we've been buying for years. That kind of comes and goes. We don't buy enough to last the entire year. We usually buy about a six month supply or so. Tentative launch date on that coffee right now is May 11th. It is certified organic coffee. So Bolivia Buena Vista would be the next one. And then I do anticipate bringing the FTO Nicaragua. We call it the Isabelia, but it's the Santo Domingo co-op. So that should be here coming down the pike pretty soon as well, pending approval of this pre-ship. Generally speaking, when we approve coffees at origin, it's been about 6 weeks to 2 months, 8 weeks before that coffee is landed and cleared and stripped and moved. The coffee's either going to arrive in Seattle if its destination is the Olympia Roastery, or it's going to arrive one of two places. If I have my choice, the Continental Terminals in Charleston, South Carolina, for shipment to the Atlanta Roastery. So Bolivia is the next one to look forward to. Hopefully you're enjoying the two recent releases, both the PNG, the Papua New Guinea Nori Kori, and also I'll just put a plug in there for one of my current favorite coffees, the Colombia Las Brisas. It's a Tolima coffee, 100% Catura. And, anyone that knows me knows I have a little bit of a love affair with Colombian coffees, Tolima specifically. So I'm pretty excited to have that coffee rolling right now. We should have that one for a little while as well.
I want to make sure everyone knows we're going to put a link in the comments here for the Colombia and the Nori Kori. The Colombia is outstanding. It has definitely, you have converted a lot of folks in the company, I think, to lovers of Colombia. I had not had a wide experience with it, and I'm really grateful for what I've gotten to discover with the Colombias you put on the cupping table. I want to let everyone know that we have a special discount that we are able to offer for folks who are watching right now, and that is we have a 10% off your purchases when you watch from the videos and go via our links. You go on site. You can use a code when you go to make that purchase of, for example, the Columbia. It's Watch and Learn 10. You'll see it on your screen right there. And when you get to the purchase page, you just put that code in, and you get 10% off of actually your entire purchase. It's not just the coffee. So just wanted to remind folks that we have that available for them.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, hopefully I provided some folks with some level of education here. I didn't get to tell any of my funny stories.
Well, I think we're going to have you back next Wednesday. Is that right, Bob?
I hope so, yeah. I'm planning on doing some more sample roasting down in the roastery this week. Come up with some more stuff for you guys to taste and talk about. And yeah, if anyone has specific questions or requests, by all means, post them. But okay, so just while, just since we were talking about Tolima and me not being able to tell any funny stories, I do real quickly want to share just one. And this is one of those things, as a coffee buyer, I often get the question, like, besides how do you make coffee at home? What's your favorite coffee? But there's the question. It's always like, what's one of your most memorable coffee or traveling experiences? And it was in Tolima, actually, and it was probably 6-7 years ago, maybe at this point. I don't even know. And I was a judge on a Best of Tolima coffee cupping competition, kind of like we're doing here. And we were going around Tolima. We were visiting different farms and going different places. And we had scheduled to be in this one city that was about a 4-hour drive from the city we were currently in. And anybody that knows anything about Colombia knows that something could be like 5 miles away, and it's still going to take you like 4 hours to get there. So this is why, there's a lot of domestic flights and such, but that's a whole nother story. But we had gone about 3.5 hours into this 4-hour drive to this town, and the person driving gets a phone call, and they turn around, and they're like, hey, we can't go any further. We got to turn around. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, here are the options. We can go to some other town, or we can drive all the way back to where we just were. And the reason we had to turn around was because there was some, despite the changes in Colombia recently, there was still some level of bandit activity in Tolima. So we decided to turn around and drive all the way back. And by the time we got, even remotely close back to where we were, it was, midnight. We hadn't eaten anything. It was kind of a strenuous drive. We were all hungry as hell, so we're just like, okay, we're going to stop. We're going to find a place to eat. And the only place we could find that was open was this kind of little, what I would compare, the Colombian equivalent of a tiny little truck stop. It had it looked like one of these fireworks stands that they just opened up and, started cooking food and such in. But I'm sitting there and I'm eating a macapamal, or a tamale, one of these banana leaf wrapped corn matzah, just really good. Probably something that I shouldn't have eaten, would have been questionable. It's 12:30 at night. I'm in the middle of nowhere in Tolima, and I look up, and they have these TV screens in the fireworks stand, or in this case the tamale stand, and there's Machete. The movie Machete is playing on these screens. So here I am in the middle of Colombia, eating something that's probably, it tasted wonderful. but was probably something that I wouldn't recommend your average Colombian tourist be partaking in. Drinking agua ardiente, which is like the local hooch, and watching Machete. And yeah, everything worked out great, right? What could possibly go wrong? So, um, yeah, I don't know if I was able to paint the picture as well as I could, but yeah, quite an experience, and really did kind of lead to my continued love of Tolima and coffees that come from there. So yeah, by all means, drink that coffee and tell me how much you enjoy it or don't enjoy it.
That's awesome. Uh, Thanks, Bob. We appreciate your
Yeah,
time today. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in as well. Remember to use the code if you go on to try this coffee. I think you've probably seen in the comments, everyone's really recommending it. It's amazing. And we look forward to these new coffees coming on board as well. And look forward to a cupping next Wednesday, too. Let's talk about what you'd like to do. And we'll meet in this place again next Wednesday.
sounds great, Josh.
Awesome.
Thanks everybody for tuning in. Stay healthy. Don't do anything stupid. And yeah, take advantage of the time with your loved ones.
Awesome. Thank you
Be
so
nice.
much. Thanks,
All
everybody.
right. See you guys.
We'll see you tomorrow.